Do you think the parties are doing enough to take care of their candidates?
Well, I think it's a job largely for the police and the parliamentary authorities. There's something called Plate, which operates from within Parliament, and whether people are candidates or whether they're standing for re-election, I do think we need to be doing more just generally across the board to protect everyone that's putting themselves forward, and not just themselves but their families too. We heard in court yesterday the story of the experience of the family of Keir Starmer and how they had experienced protests that had taken place outside his house and how that had impacted on his children as well. So I think for many different reasons we should be doing more. You know, it wasn't 3 years ago that we lost Sir David Amess, an MP, and we've just commemorated the 8th anniversary of the death of Jo Cox. You know, we have lost 2 MPs in this country. This isn't just like something, candidates not wanting to put themselves forward. There have been the most awful repercussions and people paying with their lives. So I do think we need to take it seriously. It's horrific that it comes to this, but that's the reality that unfortunately we face. And I think the responsibility lies first and foremost with the police.
Yeah, I've got to say as well, nobody should be going to any politician's home. She just mentioned Keir Starmer's one. Everyone will remember as well when people went into, I think it was Greenpeace, was it? They went into Rishi Sunak's garden. Do you remember that? Was it Greenpeace? I'm pretty sure I'm right there. They unfolded that big banner. I can't remember what they were protesting about. It was appalling. What do you think to it all, Paul?
No, I agree with Luciana. I think it's very difficult for the parties to do much more than they're doing. I do think they've got to be really careful as they're selecting candidates to remind candidates you've got to be really robust in this. And it's not just the trust that we were talking about earlier on the show. It is about the febrile nature of politics at the moment with social media. The police do a very good job in terms of what they do for sitting MPs. I haven't obviously been in that position, what they've done with candidates. And it's so people that are hosting hustings, whether it's churches or other organisations, they can't do it quite the same way they did before. They've got to reflect the changes as well themselves and look for the police for a bit of advice.
I do find this Rosie Duffield situation slightly different to some of the other things that we've explained, because I feel personally that she has been massively let down by the likes of Keir Starmer. She has a very particular view, which in my opinion, is a very normal opinion. She believes in biological sex and she's very vocal about that. She believes in protecting single-sex spaces for women. I think those are very admirable things to be wanting. But actually, I feel that she's not being supported in those opinions by her leader, Keir Starmer.
Well, I challenge that only because looking at the action that has been taken during this past week alone. So you mentioned the comments that were made by Lord Cashman. They were totally out of order, and it's absolutely right that the party under Keir's leadership took action. And
but this has gone on for ages.
Well, no, but you talked about specifically what happened, and I'm actually, I think it's important for your viewers to know what happened in response to that. You know, he took to Twitter, made some beyond inappropriate comments, but particularly when we're talking in the context of MP safety, and the Labour Party took action. You know, he has been suspended. He has had
that's probably because there's a general election campaign and they're trying to score brownie points.
No. I don't accept that at all. I don't accept that at all. And particularly when this came, for the Labour Party, this is an issue for all of the country. But we're having this conversation in the week where we have commemorated the 8th anniversary of the death of Jo Cox. This is something that kind of really, really speaks to the core of people who have campaigned within the Labour Party. I'm a member of the Labour Party. I remember exactly where I was as an MP, as a Labour MP at the time when we heard that story evolving. It will never leave me. It will never leave me. So I don't accept that it's just because it's an election that the party took action. The party was right to take action. It was swift action, and it was done immediately, and rightly so, and particularly even more so because the timing in which it presented itself, not the election, but because on Sunday we remembered Jo Cox, who died and who was murdered 8 years ago.
That was in the middle of the referendum campaign as well. But you're absolutely right in terms of the fact it doesn't matter what the party is, what the gender. It's actually, although female MPs do get it way worse, much more worse abuse than male MPs do. But it's just those two deaths, those two senseless deaths of friends of ours, could have been any one of us in Parliament. It's not that it was those two, as wonderful human beings as they were. It could have been us doing our job.
Absolutely, and maybe, like, you know, again, I say you rightly, unfortunately, because I've heard it from so many former male colleagues that it is women that disproportionately are affected. You know, I saw 6 people convicted during my time as a member of Parliament for the harassment and intimidation and death threats that they had directed towards me, 4 of whom served a prison sentence. And I count myself very lucky that nothing more serious happened, because just for the people that were who were identified and we were able to hold them to account, there was countless others who were anonymous and were not held to account. This is the environment in which we exist.
I've seen Margaret Hodges' book file that she keeps of all her abuse. When I was passing the online safety bill, obviously this was really at the heart of what we were trying to do for adults. So obviously it became largely a child protection bill, but obviously while we were protecting free speech, we wanted to make sure we could tackle some of those.
You could get rid of so much online abuse in an instant if you stopped social media companies allowing anonymous accounts.
Yeah,
I really believe that. I really believe that.
Funny enough, I had some of the big online companies' chief execs saying to me, actually, the evidence was sort of mixed on that. So it's often the abuse is coming from people who are named, ironically. Sometimes it's the keyboard warrior thing. They're not hiding necessarily behind an anonymous title. They're just sitting there thinking. It's almost like road rage. You're sitting there thinking, not realising there's another person at the end of this.
Everybody needs to be better, because at the end of the day, we do live in a democracy, and we are allowed to have different political opinions. We're allowed to support different political parties. That is part of being in a free society, and personally, I want it to remain in that way. We've certainly got different opinions in terms of our views about how Keir Starmer's treated Rosie Duffield. I stand by my view that I think it's been appalling, and I think they've let that lady down. You guys at home will have very strong opinions on that. Get in touch and let me know your thoughts.